Hey, it's Amir and this is another daily 10 segment of the Talent Tango podcast. Here with me is Arash.
Hello.
And today, we're a couple of days away from NFL kicking
Thursday,
off
yes, I'm
Thursday.
excited.
So we were just, there's some people that get really deep into the whole fantasy aspect. And we're just talking about how we actually went back a couple months and we were talking about how March Madness is a big drain on productivity when it comes around. People are just so absorbed with the, picking and following. And then what happens with fantasy football? Because I did play a long time ago
I'm
before a
retired.
kid.
I
Yeah, I'm retired.
I
I'm
I
out of that game.
officially retired a couple years ago. I just was
Too
spending too much
stressful.
time for me,
No,
but
it's forget the time. It was stressful. I was like, why am I stressing over, you know, yeah, and it's fun because you get competitive and you follow it and it's exciting. But if you want to be good at it, you need to invest time. You
yeah.
need to on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, on Tuesday morning, you need to be watching the waiver wire, seeing who's coming up,
Well,
and
you
you
gotta
need
you gotta watch the games just like anything, right? You have to be enthralled in it. You have to be paying attention. You gotta know kind of who's injured, who's playing, all that fun stuff, right? So if you're in it, it's fun.
You're following it on the during the work week though. Like
Yeah.
you are spending, I don't know, to each person will probably be a different amount, but you're spending a few minutes to
Yeah.
maybe a few hours during the work week following fantasy football and
Yeah, and I think we talked about this on a episode last week or the other week about distractions. So I think the key is knowing kind of what time of the year it is and what kind of big events are happening in society that could be affecting your workforce, right? So in this case, obviously, football season is a big thing. Coming up after that in October, it's going to be basketball, and then hockey. So again, these are just sports related. There could be other things that are happening. I know, like for us, World Cup, even the Women's World Cup, we put on the TV because it's fun, exciting. So I think it's the interesting thing to me is how, as an organization, as a manager, do you use that to your advantage? If you already know a big part of your team is going to be doing X, then maybe you actually say, you know what? Let's make it something. And so we can use it as a team building thing or just something that's, within the office that people can enjoy to do or, whatever the case is. So maybe it's looking at it from it's happening. We can't stop whatever it is from happening. What can we do internally to best utilize the situation?
yeah, I have friends who work for I mean, I forget. I have friends who are very into fantasy football.
Same.
And I know that they probably at least have, I don't know, 3 to 4 hours a week of the work week where they're reading fantasy tips.
I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, and they're following, like, what other people are doing. I mean, so it's again, like, people always joke, if you really wanna get good at golf, it's gotta be your main, job because it takes a lot of practice. So if you wanna be on top of the fantasy football, a leaderboard, you're gonna have to know all the nuances of who's playing, who's not playing, who got hurt, who's the diamond in the rough that you could pick up and
Yeah,
no
of
one
course.
else does. So it does take a commitment. What's funny is you're right. I think you can have a company embrace that and build off of it, make it a wider thing. And I mean, we've done it for Super Bowl. We do the squares to keep it really fun in the
Sure.
office. It's always like nominal things that we're kind of doing about it. Every office does, but when it's like a multi-week thing where the season stretches over 4 months, do you all of a sudden, does it become a problem? I wonder if, some organizations might, start, banning certain sites. But then you can't stop it because you have a mobile phone. Like you have
Yeah,
your
I
mobile phone, so you
so
can always be on.
this ages me a little bit, but back in the day, the first job I had, it was literally increments of 10 minutes that you could go on the internet, right? And at that point, there was flip phones. I think everybody remembers those, but there's no internet access. So you
Yeah,
couldn't look at anything on your phone. To Amir's point, yeah, now, yeah, you could ban the entire
you
internet,
can
but
ban
like,
everything. You have
yeah,
your
your
mobile
phone
phone.
literally could do it all anyway. So I think it's look, everybody's an adult. We're hoping that they're an adult at the workplace and they understand that their number one priority is to make sure that they're doing their job and they're doing it at 100% efficiency and effectiveness, right? I think, again, it's just being aware of the circumstances, in that. And sometimes you can, I think, have a little fun with that, like, I think it depends on the people you're dealing with, individually, but knowing those people, you kind of maybe can have those conversations, say, "Hey, I know fantasy football is important to you," right? And then you can go into that dialogue. And like, yeah, I think it's good, if you know your employees at that level, hopefully then they'll recognize that you're recognizing something outside of what they do for you is important, and you're giving them a little leeway. So hopefully that respect and mutual kind of back and forth will make them realize like, "Hey, let me not take advantage of the circumstance." Um, I mean, I don't know what else you have to do. You can't, babysit somebody
No, you
nowadays, so
can't. I think some of it is, you do have to. I think you're aware. Like, I mean, people will play here, I'm sure too. So there's not much you can do. You're aware, and as long as it's on their time and they're aware, if as long as it's not an issue, if it's not like, hey, it's 2 hours of productivity that you're able to see, but also you'll see productivity dip. So part of it is on look. It's going to come up. March
of course,
Madness is the same thing. People are going to go, create the brackets and go check every hour to see
all the
where
time,
they
yeah.
are. So
I do
it's
it.
yeah, exactly. So it's gonna happen. I think when you know something happened, then you can kind of be aware as a manager, as your team. I think some, maybe smaller company startups can have a little bit easier time because
Sure.
they can create common, pools, teams, policies around it. Larger orgs, they might have to take more wide strikes at that because obviously they have a bigger pool. They can't really, have exceptions. But I think either way you look at it, I don't know if there's really any way of controlling the time spent on these type of fantasy sporting activities. It's just, but it could also be somebody going on Etsy. Like you could have somebody who's planning a birthday party, like and my wife's always on Etsy when planning a birthday party
Sure.
for her. So I could imagine, like, if that were to be a thing at work, that would also impact productivity either
Yeah,
way.
like I said, it could be anything. It could be somebody that's back into the dating world, right? And now they're using all these dating apps and then whatnot, and they're spending, a little bit of time every day doing that. So whatever the distraction is, it can be there. I think, like as a manager or somebody that's kind of overseeing kind of productivity, it's knowing XYZ is potentially coming. And in this case, like football season starting and
Yep.
fantasy is starting. And then taking a look at actually the analytics, if you have that at your disposal, or just anything that shows efficiency of your employees, right? So then you can kind of work that into your one-on-ones or your meetings and say, hey, I know this is coming up, but we also have these deadlines. So that way you can kind of use it to your advantage by acknowledging it. And I think that's the thing a lot of people want acknowledgement. Like, hey, this is important to you right now. I get it. Like I do it too. I like to look at, sports scores and stuff during the day if it's like, close to whatever playoff season or whatever the case is. So I think it's one of those just to acknowledge it and then also kind of utilize kind of real facts to say, hey, this is what I need from you this week. So then everybody knows, hey, you can do that. No worries, no problem. But I still need this production out of you because our team, is still needing you to do that job.
Yeah, and I think I think if done right, I actually agree. We've done it a couple times for different things, and it's been fun because it kind of brings everyone in the company together, and it's something that we can all do as an activity, and there's some smack talk going on in the office, which just kind of keeps it light.
Sure.
So I think if done right, you can actually use it to your advantage, and you can actually make it more of a broader team type of activity. But yeah, I think the challenge really falls on the managers watching. I think we talked about, you're right, about the productivity. I think something like this, some people might be so absorbed that you need to kind of help watch their productivity
Of
and
course.
keep an eye on what possibly could derail someone, and obviously have a conversation if it does. But I do want to hope that most people are cognizant that they're at work, but like you probably have a lot of people who are working different types of roles, and they don't have as much direct supervision, and all of a sudden that person could fall down the rabbit hole and be very into, I mean, the World Cup's going to come up again. We're going to have the same. I know World Cup comes up and nobody's working, everybody's trying to catch the game. So I think it's always a cycle of a distraction and
Yeah, I mean, it's
how you
just
deal.
and that's part of, the excitement of what's going on outside of work,
Yeah.
right? That keeps you
Facebook.
kind of
I mean,
well,
that's
yeah,
we always
that's
joke about Facebook, like, I'm sure people are getting notifications at work, and just we're conditioned not to touch, our phone or worry about it as much because you're at work. So I think some of that goes across the board.
yeah, I think you gotta just be prepared, monitor, and then just kinda have open dialogue and hope that in the end of the day, people are still adults.
Having said that, pick your lineups for Thursday. It's coming up fast, and don't want to miss that.
Exactly.
Leave us a feedback on who you think is the number one pick going in
It's
your
definitely not
fantasy
Andrew
draft.
Luck, by the way.
Only if I knew. But we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks.
Bye.